the video cut off, so I'm going to read the end of the last chapter, Faith, here, and then jump into the use of the will with a little less yip yap, because the message is clear and we're strong, and you can check back to the other video before this or the one before that for some little tips for empowerment on how to address this situation from a higher consciousness level and really bring some power and some confidence back into the hearts of those who feel very unsafe right now or very unsure, who may not even be on the path of consciousness. In the last video that I read on this book, The Science of Being Well by Wallace Wattles, the chapter called Faith, which is what I just read. So I'm going to finish that right now, speaking on the powerful effect of gratitude. And let me finish this. I'm so nervous because I only have 20 minutes and I don't want it to cut off. So let's see. Okay, this is a matter of mental attitude. We cannot come into physical relationship with God, for God is a mind stuff, and we are also mind stuff. So our relation with Him must therefore be a mind relation. It is plain then that the person who feels deep and hearty gratitude will live in closer touch with Him than the person who never looks up to God in thankfulness. The ungrateful or unthankful mind really denies that it receives at all, and so cuts its connection with the Supreme. The grateful mind is always looking toward the Supreme, is always open to receive from it, and it will receive continually. So, not going to give any kind of doctrine in here right now, but you can, if there's anyone who's watching who doesn't have a faith in the Most High, or in a Supreme, or in Source, or in some higher power, if you subscribe to a system of, say, atheism, at least have personal faith in your own power, and then do this with gratitude to yourself that you have put yourself into a state of health and well-being, if that is your nature. Otherwise, I warn you that you are subscribing to a system of fear and powerlessness that is probably going to go down the timeline where this doesn't really look so good. So take some time to really get clear on what you are putting your faith in. Seriously, in all factors, because this is a major time, a mass awakening time, where there's a lot of opportunity for us here in this moment to really make some quantum leaps as far as proving how we can respond to, intelligently and from a place of higher consciousness and love in the face of unprecedented upheaval and chaos, basically. Back to the reading, because I said I was not going to talk too much. I hope that made sense. The principle of health in man receives its vital power from the principle of life in the universe, and man relates himself to the principle of life by faith in health, and by gratitude for the health he receives. Man may cultivate both faith and gratitude by the proper use of his will. And that's chapter 6, which I'm about to start, which is the use of the will. Again, in the last video, I recommended for those that are feeling unsafe and uneasy or not grounded in this moment, eat red fruits, eat a lot of earthy fruits and foods, root vegetables, things like that. Red for the root chakra, help people feel very protected and grounded and stabilized in our essentials. You know, the bottom of the Maslow pyramid is what everyone's feeling a little unstable in right now. Help us ground that by doing this, and we can eat those foods and eat based on the chakras we want to heal. Green as well for the heart, heal the heart of a lot of people that are demonstrating greed and lack right now. So work on scarcity and work on hate and distrust and that lack of love. Build love and build abundance mindset by working on these chakras here. The use of the will. Here's Wallace Wattles' take on it as well. In the practice of the science of being well, the will is not used to compel yourself to go when you are not really able to go, or to do things when you are not physically strong enough to do them. You do not direct your will upon your physical body or try to compel the proper performance of internal function by willpower. You direct the will upon the mind. and use it in determining what you shall believe, what you shall think, and to what you shall give your attention. The will should never be used upon any person or thing external to you, and it should never be used upon your own body. The sole legitimate use of the will is in determining to what you shall give your attention and what you shall think about the things to which your attention is given. All belief begins in the will to believe. You cannot always and instantly believe what you will to believe, but you can always will to believe what you want to believe. You want to believe truth about health, and you can will to do so. The statements you have been reading in this book are the truth about health, and you can will to believe them. This must be your first step toward getting well. These are the statements you must will to believe. That there is a thinking substance from which all things are made, and that man receives the principle of health, which is his life, from this substance. That man himself is thinking substance, a mind-body permeating a physical body, and that as man's thoughts are, so will the functioning of his body be. That if man will think only thoughts of perfect health, he must and will cause the internal and involuntary functioning of his body to be the functioning of health, provided that his external and voluntary functioning and attitude are in accordance with his thoughts. When you will to believe these statements, you must also begin to act upon them. You cannot long retain a belief unless you act upon it. You cannot increase a belief until it becomes faith, unless you act upon it. And you certainly cannot expect to reap benefits in any way from a belief so long as you act as if the opposite were true. So don't start telling yourself, I'm going to read this and I'm going to eat the healthy chakra foods and I'm going to take a different stance and I'm going to sever my connection with this mass consciousness hive mind that's telling me to fear and react and act as though that there's a scarcity or there's a lack or there's something to subscribe to higher than the power of humankind to show that in 2020 we're different. We're different people and a species, and we can come together and we can cooperate and we can share the basics, ABCs, 1, 2, 3s. We can share, we can wash our hands, and we can cover our mouths, right? We can do it. We can do it. Again, no disrespect to those who are suffering and are ill, but this is empowerment food for the psyche. But you cannot act the opposite. So don't practice this. I recommend reading this at least once a day, sharing it with your family. Read these 2 chapters of this book daily, once a day, and then act upon it. Don't then go to the store and then max out every ration that they allow you to get. Get only what you need and trust that you will continue to be provided for and able to get what you need. We're creating our reality because this is a critical time to do so. You cannot long have faith in health if you continue to act like a sick person. If you continue to act like a sick person, you cannot help continuing to think of yourself as a sick person. And if you continue to think of yourself as a sick person, you will continue to be a sick person. The first step toward acting externally like a well person is to begin to act internally like a well person. Form your conception of perfect health and get into the way of thinking about perfect health until it begins to have a definite meaning to you. Picture yourself as doing the things a strong and healthy person would do, and have faith that you can and will do those things in that way. Continue this until you have a vivid conception of health and what it means to you. When I speak in this book of a conception of health, I mean a conception that carries with it the idea of the way a healthy person looks and does things. Think of yourself in connection with health until you form a conception of how you would live, appear, act, and do things as a perfectly healthy person. Remember, this isn't really just only relating to our response to coronavirus. This is applicable to all mental dis-ease, or beliefs in the ability of our bodies to function in a state of lack, which is in opposition to our natural flow, because our natural source is that thinking substance from which all things are made, and that man receives the principle of health, which is his life, from this substance. And that's what this substance wants to give you. That's why your body heals itself. That's why each cell regenerates, and why your body is made new multiple times over throughout the years. This is the truth. So this applies to all disease again. As I have said in a former chapter, you may not be able to form a clear mental image of yourself in perfect health, but you can form a conception of yourself as acting like a healthy person. Many people have spontaneously healed themselves, spontaneous remission from diseases and critical ailments. I said this in the last video, from the placebo effect. This is a demonstrable, scientifically empirical evidence for all of you naysayers out there that have proven that it works by the power of your mind. So before you start saying anything other than that, remember that whatever you think is true. So better to believe the truth in this situation. Form this conception and then think only thoughts of perfect health in relation to yourself.